Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can develop an innovation strategy using a combination of visual text network analysis, GPT-3 and ChatGPT. Why networks can be interesting for developing an innovation strategy? It's very simple. When we visualize ideas as a network, we can see them as a graph. We can have a really good overview of the main concepts inside and the connections between them. But more importantly, we can also see the gaps between those ideas, which are really important when we think about innovation, because when we innovate, we want to connect those topics that are relevant to a certain discourse, but in a new way, right? So this allows us to do that. Then also networks allow us to see what is at the periphery of ideas. So for example, if we zoom in here, we can see some clusters which are just on the very edge of this particular discourse. And if we think of something that could develop those ideas further, then we can maybe break through the limits and the boundaries of this particular market discourse. So finding gaps and also looking beyond the periphery are two very useful strategies that you can do when you think in general or when you're focusing specifically on developing an innovation strategy. And you can do this using text network visualization and GPT-3. If you're interested to learn how it works, keep watching. I'm just going to show you some of the techniques that you can use. So first of all, you need to open Infernodus and then import some data. I have another video that I will link to in the description below, which explains how it would work step by step. But basically, I recommend you to take something like open survey responses of customers in a particular area. So this would be one thing to study. It's the customer sentiment. Then another interesting data source is the market discourse. So how the market is talking about themselves. This is what we will be analyzing in this particular video. Here I take the descriptions of the main tracks in a conference that happened in Hanover Messe, on automation and 3D printing, because I want to understand what the market is talking about. So you can also analyze the market discourse. You can also take the discourse of your competition by just taking it from their reports or from their website. And you can also take scientific research. So you can actually import all those different types of data using Infernodus. For example, if you have open survey responses, you can import them as a spreadsheet. If you have, let's say, just a text, you can also just analyze the normal text by copying and pasting it into the graph. And if you would like to analyze scientific discourse, you can use Google Scholar app or scientific discourse and generate search results for a certain query to see what science exists at the moment on a particular topic. But here, I will take the visualization of the main topics in Hanover Messe, and I'm just going to show this to you as an example. And as you can see, it visualizes it as a graph. We have the workflow here that you can follow step by step. If you don't know how to perform it, that will make it easier for you to go through. But basically, in general, the approach is the following, especially if you want to innovate and if you want to develop new ideas in relation to this discourse. Here we have a representation of the hot topics in this conference, right? I can see that they talk a lot about technology, here industry, then industrial, internet, transformation. So all these hot topics are here. More interestingly, I also have topical clusters shown here in the analytics panel that enable me to see what are the main topical clusters or the topics that are present in this conference. So for example, there's a lot about energy efficiency and so on. So I can either look at it manually, or I can also ask GPT-3 to generate the names for these clusters for me. And I can do this if I click here, reveal high-level ideas. What happens is that GPT-3 generates names for these clusters that were identified and shows them to me on the graph and in the analytics panel. I can click here to align them a little bit better so they don't overlay. And what I can see really quickly is that this conference on automation and 3D printing was obviously talking about automation. Okay, we have this topic that's clear, robotics technology, but also a lot about digital transformation and various software tools, security, and also climate efficiency. So these are two smaller topics, but they're really relevant because they're still important, and also they represent quite a big chunk of this discourse. So for example, if I was interested in some kind of innovation in this field, I would not focus on the main topic because everyone is doing that. I would focus on the smaller ones, like here, climate efficiency, digital transformation. If I wanted to be clever, I would go to gap insights and identify this as a structural gap, highlight it in the network. So you can see you have two clusters. They have slightly different colors, and they're also separated from each other on the graph. And this gap is where an opportunity lies, because these two topics exist in the discourse, digital transformation and climate efficiency, but they're not connected yet. And if we can think of an idea that would connect them together, this is how we could come up with an innovative strategy for this market. So I can click here or here, and it's going to generate an insight question. It will basically send these clusters to GPT-3 and ask it to generate a question that would connect them in an interesting way. So here, for example, is proposing what digital platform can provide reliable data to increase the efficiency of energy storage and working power to affect global climate transformation. I mean, this sounds great, almost like a ready-made business idea. So I can save it to my notes by clicking here, and it's going to be saved into this panel here. You can also write it manually if you want, and then click save. I can also generate more ideas, so I can generate some more questions. If you want, you can also generate ready-made answers. I prefer questions because I like to think with AI and not to have AI think for me. But if you want the answers, this is totally fine. You can also use one of the modules here, like the one that is called develop, for instance, will generate a response to this structural gap in the discourse, to this blind spot. That will try to link it in an interesting way. You can also use the ideate feature, which will create a sort of a business idea. So here it's again talking about a global platform to increase. Okay, this is very generic. Let's move on. Improve storage solutions. So storage solutions, using software to improve energy storage solutions. Great. This is almost like a really interesting new business idea that we could develop further. You can also ideate on it. Okay, so this is how you would use this feature. You can reset the selection, reset the highlight, and then ask it to show the graph again. Maybe let's switch off the topics for now. We don't need them. And I want to show you also how you could explore the periphery of a certain discourse. So for example, here I see that there is a lot, let's say, on component metal, but it's just at the very edge of the graph. So I can zoom in, click on those topics, component, metal, part, digitalization. I can select those, and then what I can do is to go into the ideation panel and ask GPT to generate some interesting content in relation to it. So it will just take those nodes or words and generate some interesting idea that would connect them together. Improved accuracy and efficiency in manufacturing process. So how we can use software to improve accuracy and efficiency. Great. This can be also an interesting trend because it's at the edge of the discourse, and yet it's connected to important topics. As you can see, it's connected to all the main nodes shown here, right? So this should be important, but it's underdeveloped. And if we develop something that could go beyond this idea, right, then we could maybe come up with a very interesting insight. I'm going to show you one last thing, how you could develop this periphery further by going a little bit deeper. So I will actually keep those selected. What you can also do is go into the editor and then switch to GPT 3.5 or 4. These two models are used in ChatGPT. And when you switch on them, you will be able to see a visualization again. Then let's say we go again to the metal part. Select this node on metal. I found it on the graph. Digitalization, component, solution. And what you can do now is just to send this to ChatGPT in the form of a chat. So you will basically send these nodes, but what Infernodus also does is that it sends some information about the whole graph and also some content that you already have in this text on this particular topic. And then GPT-4 in this case, or ChatGPT, is going to respond with an interesting idea that could connect them together and help you develop this periphery further. So basically what you're doing is that you're using the AI to think how you can transcend the boundaries of this particular discourse. And in this case, it's talking about digitalization in 3D printing and AI-driven optimization. And this is actually great because it reminds me of a really interesting product I saw there, that they're using AI to manufacture parts and design them in a completely new way. So it's like ChatGPT, but for materials. This already exists, and this looks like and sounds like a very innovative idea. So that's great. I can also just copy this and add it into my project notes. And later, once I'm done, I can generate an outline for an article that I can then later use to create a slideshow or a presentation and deliver these insights to whoever I'm working with on this topic. So you see here it's an article in leveraging data to improve energy efficiency in global climate transformation. So it's focusing more on climate, but it also talks something about says something about the digitalization of the materials that we mentioned. So this is how it would work. Try it out on infranodus.com. I hope you find it useful. We have another longer video where I explain more of the different use cases and show how you can perform this analysis step by step. So look at the description to this video to find out more. And if you have any questions, please let us know. I will leave the contacts of the support portal in the description as well. Thank you very much.